think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience has to be.
I have to object to that. I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
When it comes to contentious subjects, don't you think Bill Maher has always been a bit of a lightning rod?
Bunch of privileged mean girls complaining about privilege and trying to make fetch happen. What a shocker that the people who see everything through the lens of race and sex see their election loss as a result of racism and sexism. Yes, if only we weren't so irredeemably unenlightened, we would have elected a black president by now. Oh, what, we did? Oh, right, and then re-elected him. Maybe you missed it because it wasn't
on tech. You might not have noticed it. However, he has truly stepped into the flames this time.
Under the previous administration, we would have inquiries. We would request information. We would want cabinet secretaries and assistant secretaries and deputy secretaries to come before committee. We would send letter after letter after letter and get no response. The Biden administration operated literally in the shadows. They would not tell you anything that was going on. At least Donald Trump puts it out in the litany of orders that come out that day. Here's what we're doing today. We're going into the Department of Justice. We are taking these attorneys and they are under supervisory review, or however they choose to phrase it. You knew nothing that was going on in Joe Biden.
Consider this. Bill Maher often calls out the so-called woke mob on his popular talk show. Yet, in doing so, he sometimes ends up exposing the very values they claim to hold dear. In one heated exchange with a guest who was all in on defending identity politics, Maher didn't hold back. His direct challenges left the guest visibly unsettled, as if he had stared straight into the hollow core of politically correct catchphrases. It was less a polite discussion and more a sparring match. Maher pressed on, questioning whether shouting slogans like "End Racism" actually achieves anything if no one is tackling the deeper systemic problems behind them.
But I think it's an effort to nag us during a football game about something that doesn't change anything or anything. If I'm not a racist and I see it, it doesn't matter. And if I am a racist, it's going to make me more of a racist.
Like, I think if you're right, don't be an on the end zone, everybody will agree with that.
The bigger question his approach raises is this: what does it actually take to address racial issues in a meaningful way? This is where the discussion turns emotional. Maher isn't just pointing fingers. He's insisting that progress comes from action, not from endlessly repeating trendy slogans. Love him or hate him, you can't deny the debates are growing more intense. And if you're into breaking barriers and unpacking the hottest issues of the moment, make sure to subscribe. It keeps the conversation going and ensures you won't miss what's next. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one. Now, let's get back to this fiery clash. At the center of it all was Bill Maher, locked in a sharp exchange with well-known left-wing commentator Tara Palm. Tara stood firmly as a defender of what many label as woke politics, a worldview that filters nearly every topic through the lens of race.
I think the ridiculous notion is for either one of you all to have the audacity to believe that you understand what the experience has to be.
I have to object to that. I cannot talk about it because I am not part of a group. I am a sentient human being. You're right. There's two ways you cannot understand something. One is to be too far from it. We're too far from it. We can't see like you can. One is to be too close to something. And then sometimes you can't see it accurately either.
Maher wasn't having it. He cut straight to the point, dismissing Tara's claim that simply being close to an issue, like race, automatically gives someone the best perspective. Think of it like standing too close to a painting. When you're inches away, the details blur and the bigger picture disappears. That was Maher's central point. He argued that when discussions lean too heavily on identity politics, they risk drowning out other crucial issues. Sure, focusing only on race can stir emotions and ignite heated debates, but does it really produce practical solutions? Maher pressed this idea, pushing for conversations grounded in facts rather than empty slogans. His challenge, that the current way of addressing racism might not be the most effective, set off sparks. Ironically, he suggested, identity politics can sometimes hinder the very understanding and progress it aims to achieve, which raises a bigger question. Can surface-level rhetoric ever solve deeper problems? Tara Palm pushed back hard. She emphasized the reality of systemic racism, pointing out how it shapes nearly every part of life for people of color. Backing her stance with statistics, personal testimony, and stories, she made a passionate case for why identity-focused conversations are not only valid but necessary.
Well, all you have to do is ask my father, who literally was shot in the Orangeburg Massacre, right? Who helped found SNCC, who marched with Marion Barry and Stokely Carmichael and Martin Luther King, and the list goes on and on and on. And he will tell you today that he feels like this country's at 1954. And so if you want to talk about somebody...
That doesn't mean it is. Well, you said he feels like that. That's ridiculous.
No one was disputing the facts, but Bill pushed back on the framing. He posed a tough question, one that isn't easy to sidestep. How do we separate shining a light on real issues from simply reinforcing a victim mentality? It's not a simple answer. Catchy phrases dominate the conversation, especially on platforms like Instagram and Twitter. They act more like rallying cries than tools for real dialogue, and without meaningful action behind them, they lose their weight. The audience reflected this divide. Some leaned toward Tara, agreeing that systemic racism deserves more focus and nodding at her points. Others rallied behind Bill, applauding his call for a broader, more solution-oriented conversation. To them, recognizing problems is only the starting line. It doesn't equal progress. Bill also turned the spotlight on another uncomfortable truth: corporate involvement in so-called woke politics. He questioned how companies can proudly market diversity online while keeping their boardrooms looking nearly identical. To him, this raised doubts about whether such pledges were genuine or just convenient branding.
I am that.
I know.
So, but what I am saying though is for you to discount my father's experience and say
I'm not discounting it.
And to say it was silly.
I'm not.
No, he was shot.
No,
Were you shot?
No, but he's still alive. Like he's
Okay.
right here. Like,
Right, but the idea that if I were to say to you, as a Jew, that the experience of Jews in the United States today is worse than the experience of Jews in Europe in 1939, I would not be stating accurately.
Correct.
It's not true.
That's
and it's
right.
also not true to say that the experience of black people in America in 2024 is worse on a general level than the experience of black men
Because-
in 1954 now.
He was tapping into the very reason many people see these initiatives as hollow or even exploitative. Tara pushed back, arguing that symbolic actions shouldn't be dismissed. They can serve as necessary first steps. In her view, even small gestures have the power to shift narratives and spark larger conversations. Change, she reminded everyone, takes time, and clearing the path is part of building a better future. Still, the core question lingered. Are we sacrificing depth for appearances? Bill made it clear he wasn't against progress, far from it. He openly admitted that racial equity is long overdue and absolutely essential.
And they actually see women and people of color. And it doesn't look like some patriarchal racist nightmare. Kamala spent 100 days telling voters, I know it feels like crime and illegal immigration are bad, but f- your feelings, look at this chart. Yes, there's a lot to not like already about the new regime, but maybe take 1 week to ask what you did wrong. The basis for Democratic campaigns has become, we're the smart people. That would help.
Maher argued that when identity politics becomes a tool for control, it leaves little room for the complexity real solutions require. Are we ignoring the hardest truths while just preaching to those who already agree? Look, he said with a hint of cynicism, nobody's telling you not to fight for equality, but there has to be logic in the fight. It can't stop at nods, slogans, and hashtags. He stood firmly against what he sees as a troubling trend. The moment someone leans on facts rather than emotion, they risk being branded insensitive or even bigoted. Critics fired back, claiming that steering away from racial framing can minimize the seriousness of the problems instead of resolving them. And Tara had her points. She pressed that institutional structures continue to give unfair advantages to certain groups. Why shy away from that reality? Isn't shining a light better than pretending the darkness isn't there? Still, the question remained, are slogans alone enough to bring about the structural reform she champions? History suggests otherwise. Real societal progress requires more than noisy activism. It takes recognition, economic growth, and legislative change. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. Maher pointed to past movements that focused more on image than substance. Diversity panels that gave stirring speeches but produced no lasting policies, no measurable impact once the media frenzy faded. Was he being dramatic? Not quite. For Maher, acknowledging chaos doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means pursuing authentic cross-community efforts built on shared goals. Depending on who you ask, that sounds either practical or outdated. Tara, however, didn't back down. She countered with examples where identity-based politics raised awareness and gave underrepresented voices a stronger foothold. In her eyes, these steps painted a picture of a society gradually moving toward fairness. Bill's response was sharp, but at what pace? As the debate wrapped up, both sides managed a brief nod of recognition toward each other's perspective. Perhaps that's the real takeaway. Conversation is just the opening act, a chance to spark something deeper and more productive. What's clear is that we live in a time of fierce debates and every viewer feels the ripple effects. Now it's over to you. What's your take on the intersection of politics and race today? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and keep this conversation going.